Welcome to the Eyes Up Mindset podcast, where we explore what it means to grow daily and find our best in every aspect of life.
Welcome back to another episode of the Eyes Up Mindset podcast. I'm John Shirkey here with my friend, my co-host, Jamie Wagner. As always, good to see you, Jamie.
You as well, my friend. How's life?
Pretty good. Kind of been all over a little bit. I was in Minnesota a couple weeks ago. I was helping a friend in Colorado. Shout out to Tom Lucky, who's been on the pod. Although I was actually talking to him and I was like, hey, it's been a while. People are still asking about your 1,000-mile bike ride. And he's like, whatever. I'm like, it's been a year, Jamie, since he was on.
I know.
He's been on twice.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think about. And the message that we've been able to bring via a lot of other people, right? It's not our stuff all the time. We just get to distill it, to translate it, to make it simpler to chew on, I think, in some ways. And sometimes I probably fail at that. I make it more complex to chew on every now and again. No. For those of you that know me, it's a real problem. But the message that has been brought by our guests throughout the last year plus has been just consistently powerful and has the potential. It has changed my life, right? And I know it has the potential to change others if we do the work, if we put in the time and the effort to listen and hear what these people have to say. And in some ways, that's the message that we got to have today, talking to somebody who's doing it at a real high level.
Well, and the other thing is stay connected and be connected with people, right?
Yeah.
The reason that we got to have this conversation today with Jalen Brunson, who is a two-time national champion, national player of the year, and is a professional basketball player for the Dallas Mavericks. The reason we got to have this conversation is because of connection.
Yeah.
We had a football coach in college who also coached him playing basketball when he was in high school, which, again, I tell him in the interview, it's like, I would never imagine that we were connected in this way. And how cool is it that because you stay connected and we stay connected, we're able to grow and get better together.
Shout out Swanee, because here's Swanee's heart, right? And this is the truth, right? Absolutely. Swanee is connected deeply across our country, across age group, across unbelievable distances and time frames, because he coaches us and still coaches at Bethel University in St. Paul in the fall. He takes time out of his life in St. Paul. He's from Chicago, lives in Chicago, teaches in Chicago, right? The rest of the year, but he pours his heart into people for connection, and then has this capacity to connect people from crazy different walks of life, crazy different situations, and says, connect each other and learn and grow from each other. And that's what great coaches, that's what great leaders do, is they put other people together that are going to learn and grow. And so, Swanee, I know that Jalen is grateful for you. We are grateful for you. It doesn't mean to be a Paul Swan love fest, but he deserves it, and he's earned it over an unbelievable career.
But he's got to be one of maybe a handful of coaches ever that does that thing, right? Yeah. And not all coaches dedicate time away from their families, and they give up stuff and they do amazing things. But he's got a cool story, and maybe, Swanee, if you're listening and if you want to be on the podcast, you let us know. Which brings me to another point. This is total aside, Jamie, but we get a lot of guests because of the guests and the people that we know, right? If you are out there listening right now and you know of somebody that you're like, man, I just want to hear their story, or I think they have a really cool story that contributes to what we're doing, because this is a relatively small, tight community that we have. Yeah. But that's a way that you can share, right? If it's your story and you want to be on, cool, let's talk about it. Or if you know somebody, let's talk about that too. So reach out to us, eyesupmindset@gmail.com. Our phone numbers are on our website. Hopefully you know how to get a hold of us by now, but sorry, just an aside there, Jamie.
No, it's good, man, because Jalen's story is powerful, right? Yeah. And it's not powerful in this. There's a ton of tragedy or these things that we connect with a meaningful, powerful story. The power is in the consistency, right? Mm-hmm. And that's true for all of us. When we get consistent performance, is because we've done consistent things. And his consistency in terms of work and effort is incredible. His results speak for themselves. And we're better for having listened and had this conversation.
And you will be better too. Jalen Brunson. Here we go. Joined now by Jalen Brunson. Jalen, we're going to give your bio in the intro. So people, if they don't know who you are already, they will know when we introduce you in the intro. But the cool thing about this conversation for me, I've been looking forward to this, is how small a world we live in. We got connected because we have something in common that I would have never thought I would share with you, but we played for a coach in our past that's in common. Coach Paul Swan, connected us, and I want to get into that. But first of all, welcome to the podcast.
I appreciate you guys for having me. Appreciate that. And yeah, Swan is a great guy. So, I mean, whenever he asks me to do something, I feel obligated. So that's my man. I'll do anything for him.
Isn't that amazing how a coach can have such a dramatic influence on your life that when they call, you just pick up the phone, you stop whatever you're doing, and you say, yes, sir, absolutely, whatever you want. And I think that we have a lot of coaches and athletes that are listening, potential future coaches, leaders. When you can have that kind of impact on a young person, don't take it for granted, because it's incredibly powerful. And he obviously has that impact on us also, because his heart is so huge, right? It's just an amazing gift he gives. So yeah.
So cool. I was asking him, hey, we're going to have Jalen on. He's super excited. I'm like, what are your best stories? What should I ask him from you? So I don't know, take this wherever you want, but this is what he gave me. He's like, first of all, ask him how I greeted him when he came off the floor, which I got to imagine wasn't that often. But
man, it was like something. It was like a running joke, with my family now. But even when we play, even when we were playing, whenever someone came off the court and we actually talked about it. I kind of brought the story up with somebody. He's like, "Oh, he's a football coach." I'm like, "All right, probably he hits the guys in their pads, hits them pretty hard, so whatever." So as I'm walking off the court, he's like, "Yeah, good job, Jay," or whatever. He'll just slap me in the back and just man, it was it leave handprints, man. That's how hard it felt. He slapped me every time I came off the court, and then he didn't think anything of it. He was like, "Oh, good job." I'm just like,
Yeah, because he was just so pumped up, or what? He didn't know how hard he was hitting you.
Man, I don't know. He slapped me in the back every time. I had to brace myself for it. And he didn't I don't think he really understood it. He's just encouraging, and all of a sudden I don't know. I don't know.
All right, so at least I had some context for that question. This next one, all he said was ask him about fire truck, which, again, no idea what that means. But to your response, it sounds like you do have some idea what that means.
Yeah, I guess you can say it really starts. Swanee used to get on me about it. My mom used to get on me about it. So as I kind of started to grow up, I kind of obviously getting more mature, I started using, words that, high schoolers shouldn't be screaming across the court, And so all the time in practice, we would mess up or something, I would just scream the F word. I would just scream. I was just and then he would just yell, fire truck. And he wouldn't yell, he would just say it. But he would be on the other side of the court, and I can just hear him. I'm just just looking at me, for me being upset to actually putting a smile on my face and that fast, it would just be hilarious. And it was he would, every time I cursed or something, he would say something, but it was always fire truck is what he used to say. And then, and I guess my mom's kind of started catching on. So when I would talk, she could always hear me on the court. Always. She could be wherever she is in the stand. She could always hear me on the court. And I would just hear Jay, a snarling Jay. And I would just know that's my mom saying, stop, just stop.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's crazy the impact that something like that can do to redirect us mentally, right? You know, you talk about you're in this frustrated place and he gives you this gift again to say, nah, that's not who we are as men. You know, I think that's his intention in doing it. And your mom saying the same thing, like, you're better than that, right? You're better than going to that place. And as an athlete, that's an incredible thing to be able to reframe and to look at the situation differently. That kind of leads me to a question that I've been curious about whenever we talk to elite athletes, or athletes at this highest level, is how does that process mentally change going from being the guy, right? You're the high school player of the year a couple times in Illinois. You're the player of the year in the country at Villanova, where you win a couple national titles. And now you're, in the professional ranks where you're not a starter, but an elite level kind of bench scorer. What does that process change at each level that you grow? That ability to deal with frustration, that ability to prepare the right way mentally. How has that changed for you over the course of your maturation as a player?
Yeah, I think the biggest part of all of that. So every step of the way was I had to adapt. So every step was different. And eventually I got to that point where I was like the leader, and I was eventually able to win a bunch of things individually. But it kind of started with my mindset of always just being like team focused. Like whatever, as long as we win, the individual stuff is going to come no matter what. So that was always kind of my focus. That's how I was raised, and that's how I've just always thought. So going back to how I was raised, I moved. My dad playing the NBA and then coaching at the collegiate level, and then at the professional level. I just moved. I was moving from place to place all the time. So I kind of was able to learn how to adapt in that area and just from life. So adapting in different life situations. So whenever I got to like different teams, different situations, different things like that, it always just kind of made it easier. Because like, well, if I can adapt to going to a new school, making new friends, finding a new team, do all the stuff, adapting on the court is gonna be easy. But I never thought about that. But I kind of always realized that whenever I moved, it was something new. And so whenever I got to a new team, got to a new situation, then coach, whatever, it was something new. So how am I going to adapt? How am I going to be able to be effective in as little as a role or as big as a role I can get? So it's always about just how am I going to fit in? Not necessarily how are you guys going to change to me, but how am I guys going to change to you? Like that was my mindset.
So is there anything specific that you did? I mean, obviously when you're younger and you're moving around, you kind of get thrust into that and it's like, okay, figure it out. Is there anything specific, obviously as you've matured and gone to different environments, teams, whatever, is there anything specifically that you do to adapt yourself or to ingrain yourself into that culture or that environment?
Anything I do specifically?
Or does it just come naturally because you have done it? And
I would say it kind of comes naturally. Mm-hmm. I would say the biggest thing that never changed was how hard I worked wherever I went. Mm-hmm. Like that's the only thing that didn't adapt. Like my work ethic stayed the same or got better.
Yeah.
I always just worked hard no matter where I was. Always just found ways to make sure that my mind, my body, everything was on the same platform. Everything was on the same playing field. And so my confidence came from my work ethic. So whenever I was in a game, I just knew how hard I worked whenever and all that stuff. And so that never changed. So I guess that kind of made it easier because I knew how hard I worked. And I knew people. I mean, at this stage, a lot of guys work hard. A lot of guys work hard, or they're just really gifted. So I knew that the younger I was, the kids I was playing against weren't as working as hard as me. There's no question about it. And if they were, more power to them. But to my knowledge, there was no one working as hard as me. So that's where I got my confidence from, and that's where I still get it from. I just try to outwork.
So you've been around guys like Dirk, right? Jason Kidd's your coach now. Like you play with Luka, who's an MVP candidate kind of perennially right now. Like what have you learned from those guys? Because like you say, some just incredibly gifted, but you don't get to the level that they've been able, that sustained performance, right? That sustained consistent performance without kind of combining those two realities. So, you've been around these elite, best in the world type performers. What have you taken from their process, or, even getting to chew on their ear a little bit and ask them some questions?
I think with Dirk, me being there, his final year, I never really got to sit down and ask him a bunch of questions, but I observed him from afar. So him being in his 21st year, getting back from ankle surgery, or he had ankle something. It was something with his ankle or his foot, and seeing the competitive fire that he had, seeing the determination to get back, to be able to do what he could do, even if it wasn't at the level that he used to be able to play at. His drive is just insane.
Yeah.
And so I got to see that from afar, and watching that, kind of seeing that, kind of just showed me, like, even like the great ones, like, even when they know, like, they may not be what they once were, like, they still have that drive, that competitive fire. Like, he was 41 at the time, however old he was. Like, that's just insane. And so I think what I took for him was always just being a competitor, always work hard, and do it until you can't walk anymore, or do it until something just doesn't feel right. But to watch him do it and then get over that and just continue to work hard, it kind of just wants me to do this for as long as I can. And then going to Luka, just seeing how gifted and talented he is at such a young age, seeing what he's able to do on the court, and that is just unreal. So things I take from him are just like how he plays with his pace, how he just like thinks the game. And I'm always trying to just learn from even guys around the league. Like, I love watching guys play around the league and see how they are and how I can take their game and put it into mine. How can I grow my game? So Luka is definitely one of those players.
So that brings me to another question, because I am a perennial student, and I think that's what it sounds like you're talking about. I would imagine the lifestyle that you have, devoting everything of your life to being the best possible basketball player you can be. Like, watching a basketball game on a Thursday night when you have an off night doesn't sound like the most exciting thing in the world. Is that something you're still doing? Or are you still, just because you're like, I got to learn, I got to grow, I got to get better from these guys, I just want to be surrounded by the game? Or do you get away? Do you step away? How does that work in season, out of season? Are you just like all in all the time, or what's that process like for you?
I'm all in all the time, but there's definitely some times where you need to get away. I think last year it was different because we couldn't really do a lot, obviously, with the rules that are set in place and all that stuff. So I did catch myself watching basketball on off nights. If we had off nights, like, it felt like every other day was a game.
Yeah.
So, I find ways to get away. I picked up golf recently, and so I've been doing a lot of that. But during the season, I don't do it as much. But I know when my mind needs to be locked in, and I know my mind needs a break. And but for me, like, my routine is always, I'll be at practice, shoot, whatever. Night before a game, I always go back in. If we're home, for sure, I always go back into the gym at night and shoot night before a game. So even if I'm not watching it, I know I have to go back and do something to make sure my mind's right. And so if I don't play it or shoot, I watch it. Like, there's always something going on.
So Jalen, I think that's really important. What you just said is, I know when my mind needs a break. I know when I got to get away from it for a little bit. I think, our podcast is about getting better every day, and it's about our mental performance and how that impacts everything around us. And so I'm curious, for people out there listening, like, how do you know? Is it a physical representation? Is it the thoughts that are going through your head? How do you know when? And then, is there anything specific that you do? I mean, you said golf and I got to get away, but is there anything else specifically that you do to kind of reset that mindset and reset mentally?
Yeah, like, when I said, like, I know when I need to get away, it's kind of more of like a feeling. I can't really say, like,
Sure.
I can't look ahead and be like, hey, this day I'm not doing nothing. Like I'm not doing nothing. Like there's days where we have off days, and I make sure that they lock the door. Like I'm gonna go in and do something. Like, and so it's I can't really put my finger on it to know when I need the off day. I just kind of know when it gets there. I'm like, I need like a breather. I need like a breather. But then there's days where that does happen, but I know like it's not the time for that. It's not the time to sit back and relax. Like you need to keep pushing forward. So it's also, with that being said, I have a good support system around me, and I have a father who who did this, and so
Yeah.
I always ask him. We always talk about things, and he knows when I need rest. He knows when I need to. He'll lay off me sometimes. Like he always talks to me. Like he always talks to me about what I can do better, what I should be doing. To help the team, what I'm doing should help me individually to be in the best mind place I can be. So it's all about who's around me, and if I keep that good supporting cast around me, like they know when I need it, and they know when I should keep pushing, and they tell me.
So that brings me to a secondary thought. You've had amazing coaches. I mean, obviously your dad's been a part of that process, but you go from Stevenson to Villanova where you're with Jay Wright, right? And then you get to go to the Mavs where you have Coach Carlisle, and now you're with Jason Kidd. And it's like, what has their influence been kind of at each stage? What have they done, not only to support you mentally, physically, emotionally, all that stuff, but how has those various interactions along the way shaped you as a player? What are they doing? Like I said, we had a lot of coaches, leaders potentially listen. What are some things that you've stolen that you might be able to give away from their influence?
Or Jalen, or before you, I don't mean to interrupt, or before, leave some room for if there's assistants along the way, because those are the high profile.
Yeah.
I'm sure those guys are incredible, right? But if you want to talk about somebody else, feel free to jump in on anybody else and what they're doing.
Yeah, I think every coach has left their mark. Going back to middle school, I still talk to my middle school coach, talk to Coach Ambrose, talk to Swanee. My Nova people, I always talk to them all the time. And the coaches now, obviously, I still talk to. It's really, before all that, it started with my dad. And the only reason why I say that is because my dad pushed me to the brink, like pushed me, screamed, yelled, did all that, pushed me. And so with that being said, I kind of understood that, like, once I figured out what my dad was being a dad versus him being a coach, it kind of made it a lot easier for me to separate the two. So when it came to coaches yelling, screaming at me, I was able to just remove the yelling part, but to kind of get the message. And so when I got that, and then my teammates, especially like in high school and college, kind of saw me taking the bulk of, the screaming and yelling at most points. They kind of saw like, wow, like if coach is yelling at the leader, the captain of this team, and he's able to, take that message and move forward and perform better, like if that's what our captain's doing, or our leader's doing, and we have no other choice but to do it. It's kind of like watching The Last Dance. Everyone saw how Michael treated everybody, like how he like yelled, screamed, and did all that stuff. It was kind of hard nosed, but he was able to. He never told people to do something that he wasn't going to do himself. And so, with that being said, I just think that with my dad doing that, it made the relationships with every coach I had so much easier. Every coach, assistants, head coaches, all that. And so every coach left the mark. Every coach has always pushed me or found ways to push me by not just being the best player, but being the best leader, be the best communicator, being the best vocal guy. And even to this day, it's a lot harder in the NBA because the NBA is just full of a bunch of amazing players who all have something to say. Everybody has something to say. And so when it comes to that, you have to find ways to talk to people. And on each stage of my career, I've kind of learned how I could, talk to the audience, talk to whoever I'm talking to. Some guys can yell at, some guys can't get yelled at. some guys you got to bring to the side, but you got to do this and this and this, yada, yada, yada. And then they take criticism that way better, not being embarrassed in front of everybody. And so I kind of learned that through the coaches and the different teams I've been on. Like I kind of got to see the different types of guys I was around. So each coach has kind of helped me with that, like who I'm talking to and how I can talk to them.
It's so interesting because you've been a part of really successful teams. Like, you know, you're competing for state championships in high school. You're competing for national championships at the collegiate level. You've been in the playoffs with the Mavs. Like, how does that success, like, how did you get there at each level? Because I would imagine it was different, right? It wasn't the same process at each place. How does that change, or how did that shape the culture of excellence that you've been around for so long? Like, it just seeps in eventually, right? I mean, I would assume like there's just a set of expectations. Like, this is how we do it here. This is how we do it here. This is how we do it here. What's different from place to place potentially?
The culture has been the same. Each culture has its own identity, but it's been the same, I guess, kind of mindset. In high school and college are very similar. Different identity, but same kind of mindset. I think it's hard. It's hard to like not let that stuff like kind of like consume you. And so I really not try to think about the past successes and everything I've been able to do, because that's not going to help you. That's not going to help you going forward. If your only reasoning is, oh, I used to do this back in my Nova days, and it's not good enough.
It doesn't matter anymore, right?
It doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter anymore. It's like what you could do, what can you bring to the table now? And so that's why, like, with all my stuff, like the trophies, the rings, and all that stuff, everything I've had, none of that is with me. None of that is here. It's all my parents' house. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to look at it until I'm completely retired. I don't want nothing to do with it, because it's only going to hold me back. And I kind of learned that from Coach Wright. I learned that because when we won that first one, and then we were able to still be successful, but we didn't win the next year. I kind of understood it, and I was like, well, no one cares if we won it 2 years ago. Like, what can we do now? And then after we won that, I was all right. I did that. What's next? Now it's the NBA thing, and so I've always been able just to have short-term memory when it comes to being with success. I just try every time.
Well, and hopefully short-term with failure too, right? Is, hey, I screwed up, I made a mistake, whatever, I got to move on, because it's what am I going to bring now? Not only with success, but failure. I want to go back to the coach thing just briefly, but you said something I think that's really important, that is a skill that your dad sounds like your dad kind of gave you, was separating the roles of coach and dad, and also what was being said and how it was being said, and the message that coach was trying to convey, right? And I think a lot of kids, and we work with coaches and athletes on the individual level and the team level, and there's a lot of kids, a lot of athletes that don't understand that there's a difference between, how it's being said and what my coach actually feels about me, right? We tend to internalize, oh, my coach is getting on me. Oh, that must mean X, Y, and Z. I'm bad. I'm terrible, whatever. And then that impacts my performance, instead of saying, no, he's getting on me because he cares. And just because he said it that way doesn't mean that he cares about me any less. Right.
Right. Yeah. I think the point of concern is when your coach isn't saying anything to you. That should be your point of concern. When he or she is yelling and screaming at you, they just see better. They see what you can do. They see the potential that you could bring to the table. And so they're just trying to bring it out of you. They're trying to light a fire under you to see what you can do. And so, like I said, all people take criticism differently.
Yeah.
And so I just when it comes to like different differentiating from like coach or the personal versus the coach side of it, it's tough. But I think the biggest key for all that is just like what, like you, the player or whoever, what do they want?
Yeah.
Does the coach want them to be great more than they do? Like, how good do you want to be? And so, I mean, if you want to be the best you can be, if you want to be the greatest you can be, then that shouldn't be a problem. But when you start to feel like, damn, coach is getting on me, this is like unfair, like he's just pushing me way too hard, then you got to just ask yourself the question, like, hey, like what do I want? What do I want?
Yeah.
And then that answer could be fairly easy.
Yeah. The other thing you said was you've learned to communicate differently to different players or, your teammates along the way. And some people need, a kick in the butt, and some people need more a loving approach, whatever. I think as coaches, we need to understand that too, that everybody's different and we have to learn and adapt to their needs. So speaking of that, I know we've been kind of going back and forth trying to find a time to have this conversation, because one of the things that you've been doing sounds like you're doing a little coaching yourself. You had some camps, and so you were doing some stuff. Have you seen that play out in your camps where you're working with kids? Like you've had to adapt. I mean, obviously you do it with your teammates, so you probably did, but tell us about your camps and what you've been doing.
Yeah. So I've run a couple of camps every summer. You gotta first assess like the level of what they can do. And so kids at a higher level could be taught a little more, could be pushed a little more. Kids at a lower level, we kind of have to just like slow down a little bit. And there's nothing, like everyone's path is different. Like I kind of always preach at my camps, like don't be discouraged because you see someone who is younger than you, they may be better at something than you are now. Like don't be discouraged when you see a girl over here who's like doing things that a guy can't do at all. Like don't be discouraged when you see things like that. Like I've always preached to them like how I kind of came up through high school at their age. Like I was shorter, I was not athletic enough, not fast enough, not all that stuff. But the only thing that I had over all those kids is how hard I worked. And that wasn't easy as well. Like that wasn't like something that was a given. Like I had to like work into that mindset of working hard. And so and then all the kids were like, oh yeah, like well, like when we had like a Q&A session, they're like, one person, he asked me, it was the greatest question I've got. It was this past week. He asked me the greatest question. I will remember it. I will remember it. But I think one of like the lasting points I wanted the kids to take away from the camp was always work to be the best you can be in whatever you want to do. It doesn't have to be basketball. It doesn't have to be a sport. It doesn't have to be, it can be anything you want. Right? If you truly want to be the best at it, or you truly want to succeed in it and be happy, then you got to put everything you can into it. Right? If not, this like my motivational speech isn't for you. This is how I've learned to grow into what I wanted to be. It's always put 110% into things that I really wanted to do. And that was in school and that was in basketball. And so once I got those things, once I got school and basketball out the way, I was able to do things with my friends. And I said, if you guys want to be able to do what you want to do, you got to sacrifice something. And my best friends sacrificed my time with me then, so now we can hang out now and do whatever we want. Yeah. And those best friends that sacrificed then at their age are still my best friends today.
So you talk about these sacrifices. Are there any that are hard for you? Like still to this day, are there places where you struggle with that 110% thing where it's like, I want to give 96 today, right? How do you work through that number? What are those places? And then how do you work to still meet your identity is found in, I'm going to give this effort. I'm going to give greatness whenever I can. Mm-hmm. How do you work through that struggle of I don't feel it today. I don't feel it right now. You alluded to it earlier that happens still. So what are those places maybe?
I think today it's not as bad as it used to be. Like I've worked my entire life to get to this point. So now that I'm here, it's easy for it just to go to your head and just lose it. Like lose everything. Now that you have now I'm at the point in my life where I can basically do whatever I want. Like how can I still love this? And so I still have the same exact love I have for the game when I did when I was 2 years old. And so for me, that nothing changed in that aspect. I think all the sacrifices that I took were in high school, right, in college. Though everyone talks about like high school and college supposed to be the times of your life, right? While everyone's having the time of their lives, yeah, I had fun. I had fun in high school and college. Like, don't get me wrong, but it was after the schoolwork was done. It was after I got my work in that day. If those two things didn't happen, I couldn't let myself be social. I couldn't let myself go out and do things with friends or hang out and just like relax. Like I had to make sure I got my work in. And even after I got my work in, I'm like, hey, I could do things. I'm like, nah, I'm tired. I gotta do this all over again tomorrow. Like those are the times I sacrificed. Like I sacrificed more then than I do now. Now it's just like it's what I do. So it's not really sacrificing anything. It's just I'm doing my routine. I'm getting my mind right. And if I can fit you in, I can fit you in. If not, I'm sorry. I got things to do.
Well, Jamie, that just reminds me of when our opening talk with teams is, one of the J curve, right? Is J curve? Is that the one I'm thinking of? What is hard now becomes easy later, and what's easy now becomes hard later, right? And you get to choose, and that's exactly what you just said, Jalen. Is it was way harder at the beginning when you were sacrificing those social gatherings with your friends and hanging out and doing all the stuff that everybody says makes it the greatest time of your life. But now it's easy to make those easier. I won't say it's easy, but easier to make those sacrifices now because it's part of who you are. It's your routine.
Right. I love that. You said like, hey, if I got time for you, I got time. Like we'll fit you in and we'll make it work. But you also have to understand, like, this is who I am and this is what I do. Like I will have time sooner or later, right? And we'll make it work. But that's growing up and being an adult, no matter what your profession is, you just have, this is your profession that people think, oh, it's the sport. He loves it. It's all like go and chase that thing that you love and you want to be a part of so that the decision is easy when it comes down to, hey, I'm going to go and have a few drinks with my buddies, or I got a game tomorrow. Like I might go have one, I might go have a glass of wine, I might go have dinner, but I'm not staying out all night because this thing is more important to me. Right. And so it makes it easy. Like John said, hard early, easy late. You're in that easy late stage. It doesn't mean it's easy to be great. There's a lot there that you have to do, but you've just done it for so long, it becomes normal.
Right. I also think the biggest part of all that, it's like it's surrounding yourself with great people. Yeah. I think my high school, like I said, my high school best friends who are still those best friends. We all played in college on scholarship, every single one of them. We had football players, baseball players, and basketball players. And so the reason why I say that, they kind of understand the grind too. Like they were doing the things like, oh, I got to throw, I got workout, I got field workout. Everyone always had something. And so we all understood. And so when this summer, I was actually in town in Chicago doing my camp at Stevenson. But on the weekend, my boys we were all staying in the city. And they're like, yo, let's do brunch at like noon or whatever. I'm like, guys, I got to go all the way to the suburbs. I got to lift and shoot before anything. I just have to go. And they're all just like, I got the eye rolling emojis. I got all this. I'm like, bro, like, come on, like, it's whatever. It's the summertime. It's off season. Those guys saying all that all ended up waking up early in the morning, coming with me to work out, and then coming to the gym and rebounding for me. So that tells me everything that I need to know about them. So that's the big, besides having a mindset of, I got to work out, I got to do this, you got to surround yourself with like the people that you know are going to help you be successful.
Yeah. I love it. What a great message. I think that's a great place for us to finish on, because I think that's that is the key, right? We had a coach in college that coached with Swanee. He said, if you hang out with pigs, you're going to smell like, right? That's the thing. Like if you hang out with pigs, you're going to smell like, and what do you smell like? What are you a part of? Who are you around? Those guys get it. And they say, you know what? We get that you're on this mission to do this thing at a high level for a really long time. We're going to come and support you, and we're going to love you for it. And then you love out back on them when you can and when you have the opportunity to. And they know 15 years from now, when your body can't do it anymore, when you get to the place like Dirk and you say, I'm just done, you're gonna have time to lavish on them in whatever way you can, whether that's with time or whatever, like it's all good. And choose those people wisely, because they will begin to shape who you are and who you become. So we are incredibly grateful that we got to connect with you, Jalen. I think your word is powerful for the young people and for us as adults too. Like, give yourself to the thing, commit, buy in, and you can't help but find success. And thanks for joining us, man. It's our pleasure.
I appreciate you guys for having me. For real. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks again to Jalen Brunson for joining us today. Awesome conversation, down to earth, super awesome dude, which I expected nothing less, Jamie. And I think we both walked away with a similar takeaway, but go ahead and you were just, again, we weren't recording. I said, nope, stop, let's record because it's good. So take it from there. What was kind of your aha moment in there?
And it's been an aha moment over and over and over again as we've talked to elite performers, right? And let's break it down, right? There are very few athletes in professional sports leagues. There are even fewer that contribute to high-level teams. Jalen Brunson, 6th Man of the Year candidate for the Dallas Mavericks a year ago, right? He contributes at a high level to a high-level team. And the thing that keeps coming back, and I think this is our problem as humans, is we want there to be some sort of blueprint, right? A map to follow. Take me to success land, right? Take me to elite. And there is.
Or there's a genetic, oh no, he's just a better athlete. He's a better whatever, right?
But he spoke to it too when he's talking to these kids. I wasn't an elite performer at the high school level physically, right? I didn't have all these tools that, I'm not 6'8" and just jump out of the gym and these sort of things.
I just think, but that's even take it out of the sports world. We say that to ourselves all the time. Yeah. Well, oh, they're a better public speaker. Oh, they communicate better. Oh, they know more people. So that's why they're on that journey. Right. Well, yeah, maybe, but probably not.
We want the secret, right? We want the secret. And the secret that there is no secret. We all have been told, shown, and understand intuitively what it takes to get to the highest level. And it's buying in, it's being all in all the time. And then when it's not right for you, because physically, mentally, emotionally, you got to step away, but don't take too long to come back to it, right? It's put in the work, do the time, create the effort. And then as we finish talking about, it's easy early and it gets hard late, right? If you make the easy choices early, it gets hard late, right? This slight edge idea, J-curve idea, that if you put in effort and time, you're going to see something and eventually it's going to be great growth. If you don't, it's going to be disappointment, right? It's going to be a lack of success. And so the message, right, is you have to do the work. And then he touches on the thing that's really valuable at the end. It's like, surround yourself with the right people because they're going to allow you and empower you to do the work. And without those two things, there's really no shot in some ways.
I think the other thing that hit me too, Jamie, was that, we were talking before when we were prepping for the interview, is like professional athletes, people that are famous, the people that are out in society, they're just people also, right?
Yeah.
And when he was talking about the successes, his championship rings, the trophies, the medals, all that stuff, and he's like, I don't care. There's nothing that it does for me today or moving forward to have.
And he said it just gets in the way.
It's in the way.
It's a problem.
Right. And, I think if anybody can say, I'm going to look back and look at the things that I've done and grow, gain. And yes, he gained some confidence from being successful, but he knows that it doesn't have anything to do with the work that he's putting in today.
Yeah.
Right. It just kind of was a light bulb moment, because so often I hear people, and we talk to a lot of football guys. It's like, oh, high school football, I was this, I was, I was so good. It was the greatest.
Rico
And
from Napoleon Dynamite. Throw this.
Absolutely. Right. And we go through life remembering the good times instead of, what am I going to bring today? What am I going to do moving forward? Just an incredible message.
And that is the secret, is that unless we are present and give the effort today, we don't give ourselves an opportunity tomorrow, because when the opportunity comes, we are not ready for it. We are not prepared. We are not capable. We then dismiss it and say, oh, the opportunity never came, or I wasn't talented enough, or this other person was better. But the reality is, it's like, we just didn't seize that moment, right? We didn't seize that opportunity because we weren't prepared. We didn't give enough effort prior to that moment.
And you weren't focused on your journey, right?
Yeah,
he also talked about that, where it's like, don't compare yourself to somebody else's journey. You got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
If you can't do this skill right now, figure out how to do that skill right now. Don't worry that girl over there is a better basketball player than you.
Yeah.
And
don't worry that your coach is yelling at you. It's trying to help you. Don't worry that your leader is disappointed in your output, and that's the message that's coming through their language or through their body language. Like, hear how they're trying to help you grow, and sort through that stuff. It's not easy.
Right.
None of this. Well, no, it's not complicated, right? It's relatively simple. It's just not that easy.
Yes. Agreed. Well, thanks for joining us again, Jalen. Awesome time. Listeners out there, I know you got better today. And if you didn't, that's on you. Go back, find the stuff, because it's there. And it's, like you said, Jamie, it's pretty simple, right? It's just not that easy. So do the work. We appreciate you. And as always, live eyes up.